I'm Arden 13.
Welcome to our show, World Tiger.
Building Dragon.
Today we are reflecting on the World Anvil Summer Camp project.
It was a project set up by the World Anvil team to promote world building as well as the community in general, but today we are taking some time to kind of take a step back and look back over the past 30 prompts in 30 days and talk about the ones that we really enjoyed, the ones that we struggled with, and just everything in between.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with these 30 prompts, writing into our worlds over the past 30 days, but in any case, let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Alrighty, so I thought that we should start talking about, to start us off, talk about our 3 favorite prompts. Maybe the one that was most fun for us to write, or maybe the one that was the easiest to write, one that you just enjoyed the most.
Okay. My 3 favorite prompts, in no particular order, I think were the Asone Hounds, the Dust Knights, and honestly, Sterbin's Hunt.
Yeah, that one was...
Those were the ones that I went into them having very little idea. I think for at least, okay, so for the Asone Hounds, I had no idea what I was writing about.
Right.
For Sterbin's Hunt, no idea what I was writing about. Mm-hmm. The Dust Knights, I had a bit more of an idea of what I was going to write about, but those were the ones that I had so little to nothing and just blew up.
I really, really loved the Asone Hounds and just what you were able to come up with them. I think the ones where they had us start off with create a species in our world, those were the ones that I struggled with to begin with, and then once I got something, it's like gold.
There it is.
It was yes, this is perfect. I also liked. For me, I think, again in no particular order, I think following with your Asone Hounds, the Desert Striders, I think those just came out of nowhere, and I did like all the reactions. Thought that was great.
That has persisted, by the way.
Yeah, no. It is a common thing now in my household. They're everywhere now. So that was one that I definitely expanded upon, probably the most after writing it, just because creepy long-legged scorpions make everybody happy. Let's see. I think the Birthdays of Fuglen, if only for that one line of text I had where people get hit across the head with a stick that's got all the bad writing on it. I think that was just one of those moments of one-liners that I just loved. I don't know. I had a lot of fun with
How can you ask us to choose?
I know. I think the King's Rebels was also another favorite of mine, with the ships. I
really liked the King's Rebels. That was a really cool idea.
Yeah, just being able to walk through and I know I have a perfect vision in my mind of how that would work out. And that was another one where I was like, so I have no idea what I'm doing. And then in the last 10 minutes of us writing, I was like, I got it! Perfect! Kind of keeping with that challenge, what was one prompt that you really, really struggled with?
Oh man, I might need a second to figure out which one I struggled with. How about you take this one first?
Because I have a couple that I really struggled with. Anything where it was talking about a building or a settlement, that's what I struggle with, because I haven't traveled too much in my life to see various types of architecture or buildings, and so that's kind of where I definitely struggle. Now, throughout this process, I've definitely gotten a lot of notes from a couple commenters talking about using Pinterest and using pictures from Pinterest to help you flesh out where your world and what it looks like. So I've definitely started a couple Pinterest boards just to get a better idea of what my world looks like. I'd also say people. I think because it takes me so long to invest in characters and really, really develop them, most of the character, biographies that I wrote about, they were just very basic and plain, which is fine. It's just when I create characters, I like to go very in detail about their lives and what that would look like and how they live, and you can't really do that in 30 minutes, which just makes me frustrated, because then I'm like, I have a good idea, kind of. But then I always have to go back and, like, fix things. I don't know. I think people and places is where I really struggle, because I can come up with, you know, books and items and histories and myths and all that stuff, but then actually creating a present day, like, person and place, I'm like, well, meh.
Sure.
But yeah.
I think where I struggled the most, or at least the ones that I struggled with that I'm not wholeheartedly sold on, or at least I don't feel like I did as well as I could have, was definitely Saint Jackus, the one about the religious figure.
Really?
And that's literally just because I bamboozled myself and I'm continuing to beat myself up over that one.
I love that one because it was so just like a side character in, you know, because we talked about this where it's like you've got Arcosia, like this grand, incredible dragon Jesus character, and then you talked about the guy on the side and just like his...
Sure, but I felt like I struggled with getting around to writing that one. But I think the one that I really struggled with the most in terms of like maybe just looking at not necessarily the prompt, but looking at the article type and trying to fit this in my head and make sense of it, I think was the Devil Raja standard. The script, the language, the secret code that we had to come up with. And it's not because I hated either of those. It's just that in terms of getting started, those were the hardest for me.
I think keeping with your Devil Raja code, the whispers, the wood whispers or that thing, I think both of them are great ideas. It's just getting them into the way that they had World Anvil set up, where it's like, no, you can actually create a language with the alphabet and the syntax, like going into like the high details of what that language could be.
You and I spent way too much time during the writing of that
just
prompt.
Being like, just are you serious?
What is happening?
I
can do what?
Yes. It was, I mean, I'm gonna use that for sure, but just the language that I was trying to come up with wasn't written, or it was only not even spoken really. It was just...
It was whistled.
Whistles and
it was whistled in like
two sticks hitting together.
It's a very interesting thing. Your concept for it is very, very interesting because it's not something that is just so commonly known, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about the way that you add things to your world. There's so many little niche things that your standard roleplay characters, your standard murder hobo to actual characters would never pay attention to. The amount of times that I've played in games or played games or run games where there is a rogue and a druid in the party and they never care about anything that's written in druidic or thieves can't. It's immense. But just having something like that is something so niche and cool to me that I would love to have your standard like ranger character be able to understand that. That'd be so cool.
Well, I think what's been really cool is since we've started writing these and we've gotten a little bit into actually playing in the Elacrid game, a couple of the things that you've written in your prompts have popped up in Elacrid as we're walking through, and I've gotten way too excited about it. Like, I have an Ethonian peacock now. I just have one, so
you did just get one of those.
I saw it and I was like, I need that and I need it now.
And it was fun because you were playing that and I mentioned that. I think in that same session I made like 3 different references to things that I had made.
And in character I was like trying to find a justifiable reason why my character would really be invested in this, because I was like, I know what that is. But
I think Mal's reaction had to be the most entertaining, at least to me.
Oh yeah.
Just, why should I care about this? Oh, that's why I should care about this.
Yes. But, yeah, what was one of the greatest changes that was implemented in your world from this challenge? Something that changed just the way maybe you thought about Elacrid or Nora? Something that got to be developed through this?
Something that got to be developed through this that I didn't have initially was the log of criminals in Nora.
Yeah. And that's a big thing.
That's a big thing now. Like, that's, in terms of standard narrative, that thing's not going to pop up too frequent.
Mm-mm.
But it is just an overarching presence.
Yeah.
That adds, I think in the writing of that prompt specifically, I added 4 different layers, quote unquote, to Nora that I now have to go back and figure out, or like make sure that it's fleshed out. Like, the log itself, which I actually get to go in and write the log. Oh God.
Because that was the document one, right? Where you can literally write the document.
Yes. You're gonna get lost.
Yes.
You yourself are going to get lost.
Yeah.
The other one, or the other things that were like the Inquisition, the branches of the Inquisition, like all these different little things that I now get to put in to help flesh out Nora, and it created a different feel and vibe that I was really struggling with figuring out, of like the presence of the Abyssal Throne.
Right.
Obviously it is an ever-present thing, very similar to like the Iron Throne or just like the world government.
Right.
But it's, now I have something more to go off
seeing
of.
those papers, it is a very clear, like, they're in your business, they know who you are, they know where you are, and everyone's keeping tabs on you.
Yes.
Yeah. I really liked that one. That one was another one of those, like, that's kind of scary.
I have like sociological, psychological fear, if I could speak today.
Yeah.
Yours is just, here's something freaky.
Right.
Like the Blight.
Yeah.
And the Death Striders. Huh!
Everywhere.
What about you?
I think that, in general, I was struggling with figuring out how... I knew that there was a war in Theatrum. I knew that Sundom Manel was very present and very... I can do it.
No.
Okay. But I knew that was something very present in Theatrum, but I didn't really have a why. So being able to connect all those dots and be like, this is why they're so present, this is why they're such a huge figure in the world, because they did those conquests of truth. They created the scripts, which educated pretty much, well, they tried to educate the entire world. They, their ideals and how they operated in the beginnings of the new era in Theatrum were very pivotal to how it came to be. And so being able to flesh out more of, like, that's what that looked like, helped me as far as a history, because that's another thing I struggle with, as far as, like, I know where, if I wrote something about Theatrum, or if I had a game set in Theatrum, I know where it would be, but I don't have a necessarily, like, solid history, where I know with you have, like, 5 eras in Elacrid, versus mine, I'm just like, there's the time before the Great Flood, and there's the time after the Great Flood, there's a war, and then this is where you are. Just being able to kind of get a better picture of...
Do not try to, like, flex for me on my behalf of, like, oh, you have 5 eras. Those are 5 great expanses of time that I have not figured everything out on.
Well, not figured everything out on, but you have
just a playground for you to throw random things and events in there. But...
And I think that's where I got to really flesh out more of, is like, this is more solid dates and times of like when things occurred. That way I can actually go in and edit more, and it's not just this wad of time.
Sure. I think what I really appreciated about your basically sitting with you during this entire program is you have told me about Rodnev, you have told me about, it's not Axiom.
Avium.
Avium and Rodnev. Those are the 2 big places that you've told me about. And I know I make it's a meme at this point, the
right.
Sundom and they'll open up. But seeing you work through all of that has created such a depth to your world that I didn't know about before, and I greatly appreciate just having the slightest inkling about. And the fact that you had all these different working pieces that you may have mentioned in passing, but now there are more concrete.
Yeah.
And they make more sense to you. That is one of the best things about world building.
It's when everything clicks.
When everything clicks, you have so many amorphous things, and you're just able to like
string them all together.
Yeah, string them all together.
Get all the yarn out. But
and it's really good. Like, I don't know the ratio of how many prompts you wrote about Son Dominel in comparison to everywhere else on it.
It's a lot.
But like, Son Dominel could be its own setting right now.
Really? Oh yeah, for real. Kind of going off of that, picking out a favorite response from the other person, I think one of my favorites from yours was the Asone Hounds, because they're just big puppies, which I like. And, I had one in my mind that I remember really, really, really liking. What was one that I really... Oh, Dragon Crest. Just in general, hearing more about the guild and all that. Oh, and, wow, blanking on the name. The city. Arcosia.
The city Arcosia.
The city Arcosia, and hearing it, how it got taken apart and then rebuilt, and then taken apart again and rebuilt. I think that's one of my favorites. Back and forth. It keeps getting ruined, but, you know.
They try. In that same respect, when looking at your stuff, the scripts were really cool to me, because Theatrum is, in comparison to Elicrid, it is smaller in terms of territory, but that does not mean that it is lesser by any stretch of the imagination. One of the things that I never thought about was was basically how people got educated, how education works, depending on region to region, and just the inclusion of that layer. If you go back and watch any of these videos, I freak out so many different times, and when you are talking about anything, because you just add layers that just build on each other that create a more fleshed out world, it feels a lot more real than I would even argue sometimes Nora or Elicrid does to me, just because of the detail that is interwoven and connected. So the scripts was really big for me. The connection between the Whispering Gulch and Matronomenel? Mataromenel. I will
it's
never...
a weird one.
Mataronomenel.
It's Elvish.
And the warlords of Mataronomenel, that whole connection was just super cool for me. Also, just the division, the egregious split between these enlightened people, but one of them is more aggressive while the other ones kind of saw the error of their ways, but
and
just...
they're like, maybe I should
not do that. But those were the ones that really stuck out to me for Theatrum, and I know you had so many good ones.
Well, I really like hearing more about Elicrid and Nora in general, because I do play in the Elicrid games, so hearing more about that world, trying not to metagame, but it's sometimes it's a little hard, but yeah, for sure, I think there were a lot of really cool moments. Also the ones on the road.
The Blight Council, the Wardens?
Yeah.
The High Wardens, the Deep Wardens?
I thought those were really cool too, just as an idea of people out in the world.
They were fun. I enjoyed being able to flesh them out a lot more than what I had originally. I was just like, yeah, they're guys that run around in armor with crossbows and bows and shoot things.
Right, giving them a little bit more of a, no, this is what they do.
Giving them more direction, for sure.
Well, that actually answered the next question I had, was what was something you already had in your world that you were able to expand upon. I really got
almost everything.
Yeah, almost everything. Yeah, I think a good amount of the stuff that I had a kind of an idea for, but I was really able to flesh out things like the people and the animals, though. Those just like, and here they are now.
And here they are.
Yeah.
The species definitely threw me off. When I came up with the Athonian peacock, that was something that you sat there and you were typing, and I sat over there, and I was just...
Well, because we both sat
waiting.
there. Right, because we both sat there for a good couple minutes just being like, well...
Maybe.
Maybe.
Neither
something.
of us will come up with anything.
Anything? But yeah,
Okay.
The only other thing that I had was on the 30th, they came out with 3 new prompts, and I wanted to see if you had any ideas. Obviously, we haven't written for those prompts yet, but that would be more for funsies, just to see what we can come up with. So I wanted to get your ideas on those last 3 prompts. So one of them was a material used as a source of fuel or power.
So here's the problem that I've had with this entire project, and it's literally the one glaring issue, and it's not with World Anvil, it's not with Summer Camp, it's with me.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we have talked about a material or a thing that is worth invaluable just immaterial invaluable, I always go back to Charter
Magic. Yeah.
When it comes to Electrid, I always go back to Charter Magic.
Well, and then you started to rub off on me, because I really thought I was doing something with the, what was it, the...
Source Magic?
No, it was the, technology from your world, and I was like, ooh, I'm gonna write about a magic that's old and lost, and no one knows what it's used for, and I was like, Source Magic, mwah! I talked about it, and, Tyler was sitting right there, and then you were like, yeah, Charter Magic. It's got these source points, and I was like...
So here's
not as
So here's the thing, and this is what I've realized, is that I need to go back over the course of every article that I've written concerning Charter Magic and be more distinct about it. And I've had some time to reflect and think about Charter Magic over the course of this and over the course of recent games, and I'm really starting to figure out how I can divvy it up, where the material itself is not Charter Magic. I can change that.
Mm-hmm.
The technology itself is Charter Magic, and that's fine, whereas the overarching kind of umbrella that it is, but where the material and the species or whatever kind of breaks down the technology that breaks down is not necessarily, it's not all just going to be 6 articles titled Charter Magic.
Right.
They have specific things, and I've figured out how exactly I want to go about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just taken so much time.
But, yeah, I think, I don't know.
What about you?
A material used for a source of fuel or power. I think I also run into that issue where, I think when Tyler was here, he was talking about how Adula has a lot more technology, and he could probably go into something more detailed about that. For me, source of fuel or power, you're looking at coal, wood, nothing too... I could probably come up with something grand and spectacular, but
some gasoline variant.
It would take a minute, because that's not something that I really
in a fantasy
on.
setting, that is something that you would definitely have to take a few liberties with. And that's something that I always struggle with when it comes to technology, when it comes to materials like that, because I always want if it's a metal, it has to have some certain property that makes it viable. But I don't want to have it. I don't want it to be adamantine. I don't want it to be vibranium. It's so. I get into it. I get cut into it. So this one I will probably go back and write.
Right.
It'll probably be about Charter Magic in some way, shape, or form. But with a better understanding of how it breaks down to me now, this would probably be a lot easier.
Yeah. Write about a famous agreement or contract or treaty that shaped your world. I don't have a fully fleshed out idea of... I mean, I have a why as to why the Conquest of Truth ended, but I don't have an idea of the agreements that were made between all the countries involved. Sure. I don't really have I don't have that yet, so that's something I would definitely be interested in going into. And that would be one that I probably actually write out in the documents, and it's just writing out the specifics of why it was ending.
The articles, the clauses, the subclauses.
Right, all that. So that would be one that I would really enjoy. But there are also plenty of other contracts and agreements that could shape history. But
what I really like, sorry to cut you off, but what I really enjoy about the way that you and I have kind of approached certain things is that sometimes we'll be very deliberate about things that that shaped the world. We're like, all right, so on the world stage,
right,
how did this document affect it? But at the same time, we've gone back because, and I think specifically I call back to the character who works in the shadows and runs things secretly, because I was just like, okay, in the world, and you were like, Roadneff, underground, runs things underground at a small scale, but that, I think that duality between the two of us writing was really interesting, but also, quick shout out for that character, super dope. Like,
no, I liked the Fel. I felt like had a lot more detail in there. I think as far as Mordai, it was just like, yes, like I said earlier, pinpoints. I know kind of what he does. He's trying to get into Mataro Manel and deal with them, but.
But that's the thing, is that he affects the world behind the scenes on a smaller scale in comparison to the Fel, but, excuse me, when you're talking about this document, a treaty, it doesn't have to be like this treaty that ended the conquest of truth.
That could be
it's a treaty,
contract between.
Yeah.
See, there you go. I'm just gonna. Perfect. Yeah.
A contract not necessarily between Son Dominel and the rest of the world, but like
Mordai and maybe a warlord.
Mordai and a warlord that like people don't really realize it, but it definitely like changed
the
world.
Yeah.
I look at this one specifically, and this is one of those instances where you maybe struggle with what you're gonna write about. I know exactly what the hell I'm writing about.
What?
In Elecrid, there is the Free Cities of the Varian Alliance. The Treaty of Varian. Know exactly what I'm gonna write about.
Well, I'd be excited to hear more about that one. And then the last one that they had was describe the events of a conflict that started due to an unusual or unforeseen circumstance.
What's the scale here?
Yeah, I know.
We talking about a bar fight? We talking about a world war?
It's talking about a military conflict.
Military conflict that was started due to an unforeseen or unusual circumstance. I don't mean to like push anyone's buttons, but my mind immediately goes to what started World War I was very strange circumstances. And that's kind of where my mind goes and how I would try to figure that out and divvy that up. But to be frankly honest, I don't know at this moment.
That'd be one where I'd have to sit there for a second and kind of think, well...
Anytime,
come on. Inspiration.
Where are my muses?
Yes. But yeah, thinking back to the World Anvil Summer Camp project, I think we got a lot done. Got a lot.
There was so much accomplished.
Yes.
I mean, even there were 30 prompts. I didn't have 30 articles written prior to this. Like, this was a wellspring of opportunity and inspiration, and just has helped me just go a little bit farther with Elecrid and make it someplace breathing in a way, I guess.
More fleshed out, more layers, more things to know. But
she's the queen of layers.
I've got an idea, and they all have to connect. I will find the way that they connect. So, but that's pretty much all I got.
That's all I got. Thank you so much for joining us today and joining us over this entire journey. This has been a whirlwind tour, but it's been so much fun. Let us know in the comments below something that you enjoyed about today's video, or any video in particular, something that stuck out to you, or if you have an idea that you're willing to share, maybe something sparked some inspiration, please feed those world building fires.
If you enjoyed today's video, please make sure to hit all those buttons that everyone else bugs you about. We would love for you to join our lunch table.
Please. It would be greatly appreciated. But also keep a lookout in the near future. Kat and I are going to be launching our next bit in World Tiger Building Dragon, where we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of world building, starting from where do we start and basically building from there. It's kind of walk you guys through our process, and maybe we can help anyone who's struggling out there with world building and basically trying to figure out where to start or how to embellish and work on it from there.
Yeah, make sure to keep an eye out for that on the Lotus Media channel. But in any case, I'm Kat.
I'm Arden13. I'm still waiting on that ramen.
We'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye.